Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. So thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Anna, Richard, for the invitation and the contribution for this. Really happy to see you all again. So what I will present today is about my presentation is taxonomic uncertainty and the challenges of ethnic species richness. That's about how taxonomic changes may affect patterns of composition and other things that we mentioned on biodiversity. That's the work I'm doing with Leila Maia from the University of Minas Gerais in Brazil, and Richard and working more intensively. So I organized the presentation in 4 parts. So we talk first the estimates of species richness, how taxonomic change challenge such estimates, how we can use the data of rates to understand better the uncertainties associated with the estimates, and at the end it's about the future of taxonomy, like our wish list and the colleges that we have for the taxonomy. So let's get started here. So as Joaquin was saying, our knowledge of biodiversity is extremely limited in some aspects. So when a new study publishes like new discovery, new species discovery, or really point out like where the easy discovery, like where can we go on Earth that we find the highest number of undiscovered species. So when a new study publishes like a high impact result, like if you want to discover new species, you go here or there, it very often gets like to the BBC headline news everywhere. So very early this year, there was a study in PNAS that suggests that there's 43% of an unknown 3 species, and 3 are very well studied biological group. If you want, the 43% of all unknown species, 3 species are in South America. So what Joaquin said, that's on that part of the edges of our knowledge that is going to grow this rate is there. And now then a few months later, another study in PNAS, he suggested they found that, but if you want to find mammals, so if you want to find new species, you go to the unexplored areas of the Amazon. But if you want to find the new mammals where they are, actually you have to look at those species that are already described, but they're cryptic. So we know already more or less where they are, but to close this gap, we have to take a slightly different approach. Yeah. But what they both suggest, to close the gaps, we have to invest in taxonomy, like either going to explore unknown areas or look at those species that we think we know, but actually they are hidden. They are hidden on the knowledge we already have. But how this assumes in a way that okay, the species they are described and they remain. In the first case, the knowledge of species of trees, we don't need to investigate much of the species described already, but they will remain stable, and if we find a new one, to go to the new areas. So, but we know that the taxonomy is very dynamic, and it's a discipline that actually I don't know, but for me, the discipline that has seen a lot of change in the methods and in the approaches. And also quite heterogeneous in a way that the taxonomy is working across different taxonomic groups. Let's say for the plants and for them, it's quite distinct. So how does this change can affect these estimates of species richness? Here, okay, first very quickly, how does these estimates work? There are like a few methods. There's a very common one that extrapolates species accumulation curve. So here on the y-axis, you have the number of new species along the time. So what you do, you just plot this species discovery curve, and then you extrapolate. So if you reach if you're close to the plateau, you go to the future, there's not much new species being discovered. So we are almost, we are good, there is not much new. But if you look at ferns, for example, actually it's still quite steep, the end of the curve, so there's a lot of new discoveries to come. But then if you think of the taxonomic change, what can happen, if you lump species together, and let's say, if you look at this curve, the first, and there's still a lot of speed to come, like what we suggested in the paper of the mammals I showed earlier. We are actually quite underestimating the number of species because there are a lot of species still to be discovered. But if there is taxonomic lumping, that the species are going to be considered, two different species start to be considered one. Even if we are in a plateau, we are overestimating the number of species because actually the number of species may be much less than what we think. Yeah. So we start to think, how can we make it very explicit on estimates of species richness and any interpretation of the biogeographical patterns? How can we make it very explicit, the taxonomic change? How can you really, open the eyes and see them? So we start to look at the different range of species discovery, of descriptions and change. No? And we started here looking at palms in the Amazon. And what we see, we compiled like the data of descriptions of all species, yeah, all names. What is accepted today, what is synonym. And what we see is that even quite recently, there are a lot of species that are described and then they are synonymized. So what we saw for palms is a huge amount of lumping. So the 223 valid species of palms that we have today in the Amazon, they were described as more than 1,200 different names. This included names that refer to the same taxa, there's homotypic synonyms and also heterotypic synonyms. No? So for palms, it was a huge amount of lumping. And how did it affect the pattern of species composition? And say, yes, it did. Because if you look here, it's a kind of imagine a scenario that all the species are described and they stay. Nobody comes in the house, They just accumulate, the names just accumulate. And on the other side, we have like the current taxonomy. So in the Amazon, it's quite the gradient there that the species turn over from the Andes to the Brazilian sheep. It's well documented for many groups. And also for palms, we find the same gradient. But this gradient, it only emerges if we take into account that species are lumped, that species are reclassified, that there is a taxonomic change. And then you look at the species richness, here we only took the heterotypic synonym, so it's really different species. We are looking, and here we are looking at Bigononia. So what we find here, if you take all names, here the north of South America is much more rich than here. If there is no, here the current taxonomy, here is all the species ever described. So the pattern is the same, but it's a huge difference on the total number of species. So we know that taxonomy makes a huge difference for the ecological patterns we know. No? And looking at this, we know there is a huge difference, but there are so many questions that we were not able to answer, they're not able to answer. For example, we don't know when did these things happen. Which species are more likely to go taxonomic classification? They're still looking at the huge impact that the taxonomic change has. It opens like more questions. No? So what we started to do was really to disentangle the match. Let's open at the beginning of the project when I was talking to some taxonomists. They said, Yana, are you crazy? You're going to open this the wasp nest? It's a mess. You're not going to be able to, put everything in line. And I have to say that they were right. So we started with palms, with palms of the Amazon, and we were able to document when all species were described and when they were synonymized. Yeah. So you see here, let's say if you take one genus, one species actually of Atalea butyracea, if we look at in 1900, we would count 4 different species. In the 70s, we would call 17 different species. In 2010, we would count 3 species, and today we know it's only 1. Yeah. So, and now with this data, what we can do? We can ask for how long the species is valid. Yeah, does it matter? Yes, it does, because with this we can see the changes in species richness. We can know when did they happen. Are we close to find like a stability? Are the changes still like too frequent? Or for questions of species richness, is the decline on species number because of lumping compensated by the additions of uncollected species, or which taxa are more likely to undergo taxonomic change? Do they occur in areas that are vulnerable to deforestation? Are we going to lose species that we still don't know them very well? The taxonomy is because they occur in areas that are, under deforestation. So that's what we're going to answer. And for that, so we got, that's what we are discussing here today. So we got the data of when the changes happened. We have a collaboration with the Amazon Tree Diversity Network. We got the plot data, the field sampling from the same study that was published recently on the predominance of the Amazon, that says that actually a large part of the Amazonian tree flora, large part of the large number of trees in the Amazon is just like 200 species. So there is a lot of diversity, but there's a very limited number of dominant species that they are the ones that are important for carbon sequestration. For all the ecosystem services provided by the Amazon rainforest is actually restricted to a very limited number of trees. So now what we are going to do is to couple these two data sets, no? So we know, are these hyperdominant species just dominant because they were lumped or not? Because now we are going to know if they become dominant after they were lumped, or they have been always dominant. And then to look like, can we predict the changes? Can we see like which species are more likely to undergo reclassification? What we did here, we compiled a database of attributes of the species description. So for all the beginning, so we went back to the monograph and said how many pages is got this species, how which of the techniques used line for all the synonyms and all the valid species. So now we're going to see if we can predict what's the trend. And so what we try was for us, what is really the challenge is to make these two things really, to bring the taxonomy and the ecology together. Yeah, to really bridge the two disciplines that we see is really a bottleneck for us to get a sound understanding of the macroecological patterns. And for this, it becomes quite clear that to continue to uncover all the undiscovered species, or to have a sound taxonomic knowledge, it is certainly true that we do need to go to the Amazon, explore the unknown, like the remote areas, and we do need to look at the species that we already described. But to get a sound understanding of the macroecological patterns, what we need to do is also to uncover this history of taxonomy. Yeah, to uncover the taxonomic data that at the moment is very difficult to get access. Yeah, because they are all, let's say, all the plants of the world topic with many of these biodiversity databases they offer the information that's just at the end, like you know what is now, but you don't know anything that is, how did this Atalaya end up as one species? This has been like 1720. So this data is still somehow buried in this, we can't see. So here I show example, yes. There was this revision of Atalaya. And the taxonomist in this case, what did he do? He has an Excel sheet as a supplementary material with all the matches for each leaf of each voucher. Yeah, so you know the size of the leaf, you know the size of the bracket, you know a lot, yeah, about the voucher that was used for a taxonomic description. So came a young guy afterwards, made a nice database. We connected, we put all together all the trade data that we compiled from the taxonomic study. Then later, somebody came and used this data from this guy. He doesn't refer to Anderson anymore. Andrew. But it's there. So the data is recycled, reused. It's, and that's, I think for ecologists, there's a bit of dream for the taxonomy to, they have the species on their hands that we can somehow access the data. Yeah. Thank you.